Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? Of course, my name is Blitzwinger, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to, of course, another LEGO set review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at set number 76021, the Milano Spaceship Rescue. It contains 665 pieces, which means that, of course, it is the biggest set for the Guardians of the Galaxy-themed LEGO Marvel superhero sets, which is absolutely awesome. Of course, if you guys don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy is my second favorite Marvel film, right behind Iron Man. Still have a soft spot for that one. That one is certainly my favorite one. It was the first one, and it was very enjoyable, but that's kind of getting a little off topic, which is something I tend to do. Nonetheless, of course, as you can see, the box is absolutely spectacular. Some fantastic art right here of all of the pieces that come in the set, along with, of course, our nice Sakaran ship, along with the Milano itself, which looks absolutely glorious. Star-Lord flying through space there. And of course, as you can see, we also see Ronan and the orb. So that being said, of course, let's go on ahead and take a look at what is inside this set. So here is the set fully assembled. Just wanted to give you guys an idea of kind of the scale of the Milano itself. Of course, this is a pretty large set with 665 pieces, so we get a very nice detailed look of the Milano ship itself. And as you can see, it is quite massive, especially when we compare it to the size of the tiny little Sakaran ship or battle fighter right here. Just for comparison's sake, like, look at that ginormous difference. That is just absolutely crazy, just how much more massive the Milano is in comparison to the tiny little Sakaran ship. However, with that in mind, no need to insult this little thing, because this thing is actually a quite nifty little fighter. I have to say, I think it turned out quite nice. I was very pleasantly surprised by it. In fact, I kind of wish that maybe in that $25 range we would have got one or two of these so that we could kind of army build a little squadron of these bad guys, because we know that there were plenty of them in battle, of course, in the film. So I really like the way that this thing turned out. I just wish that maybe there was a cheaper way to get a few more of these. Now, of course, you could just order the parts separately and assemble it that way, which I guess might just be the best way to go about things. However, as you can see, it is definitely quite small, but it does have some nice details. We have two nice little stickers to kind of recreate the look that we saw on screen, so that's very, very nice. I actually, generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of when there's a lot of studs exposed like we see here, or at least kind of like, you know, not flat panel lines. I'm not a huge fan of that, but here it works because the Sakaran is, on a certain extent, like they have an extended technology and they're very advanced, but then on another hand, they are much more primitive in nature, so it almost fits this particular build and this particular character and race. So I think that it works very, very well in that regard. There's some really cool details with the blasters. You can see that this is definitely a thing built for battle. We have, of course, as you can see, this nice little red blaster up in the front here, which you typically wouldn't see when you have Ronan mounted on the front, so that's why those studs are exposed as well, because as the packaging indicates, typically Ronan would be riding on the front of the ship right up here, so keep that in mind. Then we have, of course, except for the tiny little blasters, we have these big side blasters, which are cool because they are the little press-down launching missiles, and these fly very, very far, so I'm not going to fire them off because I'm probably going to not find them anytime soon if they fly behind the desk, so that wouldn't be too fun. But those are very, very cool and are my favorite type of rockets that LEGO uses. On the back here, there's a nice additional piece of detail with the blast-off, so that's cool as well. The nice little rock terrain creates a good look, and then when we open up the cockpit itself, we have obviously the Sakaran pilot in there ready to rock and ready to roll, and a nice little control panel for him to operate this particular beast. Last but certainly not least, for this little TIE fighter, as you can see, we have these almost wing-like action, which are supposed to be flipped inside out the way that you guys are seeing them, but if you'd like to change them into different poses, for example, the way that I look at it is, let's say that when it's in battle mode, it would approach the battle like this. It would slow down and fire off and have the encounter, but then when it needs to really fly quickly, you could do different looks. Like, for example, you could fold these like so to look more like traditional wings. So that's really cool that they give you lots of options in terms of display for such a tiny little thing. So this is, in my opinion, a perfect example of something that doesn't have very many parts to it, very many bricks to it in terms of assembly, but still has an incredible amount of detail for such a tiny little vehicle. But of course, the meat and potatoes of this set, so to speak, is the Milano ship itself. This was the reason why I bought this set. I really love the Milano ship. I think it is very iconic already, even though it's only been fit in one film. I really loved the way that it was portrayed, the importance that it had. It was really cool to see. But, of course, this is the Lego form of the Milano ship. One thing that I have never noticed before on the Milano is the bug-like features on this thing. Like, to me, it looks very much like a moth or some sort of a bug, as you can see. Just the way that it's shaped, these outfolding kind of wings and these big round pieces that almost look like eyes, this acting like a snout or nose type area. It reminds me a lot of some sort of a bug-like creature, which I always really enjoy. Things that are designed after bugs. I don't know what it is. I really like the shape and just the aesthetical look of bug-like things. So as a result of that, I really obviously like the way that this thing turned out. Now, this thing has plenty, and I mean plenty of really cool details on the outside. So let's run through those real quick. Alrighty, so let us begin, guys. So of course, as I mentioned before, there's some lovely details right here in the front. A lot of the details are actually done through just pattern work with bricks, which is really pleasant and nice to see. I actually love when we see that kind of thing happen instead of just getting a whole bunch of stickers. But don't get me wrong, this set had its fair share of sticker work because, as you can see, of course, all of the wings here and the little panel line right up at the top here that almost acts like a solar panel of some sort, and all the wings here are all stickered in. So even that little dot right there is actually sticker. So unfortunately, we still do get a lot of sticker work. Again, I personally am not a big fan of stickers because over time they are more likely to wear down. If you're not, even if you are careful with them, they are more likely to wear down. So just for many reasons, I'm not a huge fan of them, but here it works. It creates a nice little asymmetrical look because we have things that are present on this wings are actually not present on this wings. So that's really nice because they look different. There's different lines, there's different little signs and such, and that makes it feel different. And more importantly, it kind of gives it that character of Star-Lord over time, just kind of, you know, let's say one of these wings broke off during an adventure of his, and then he just needed to replace it. So he found a random wing somewhere in a junkyard, and he just put it on there, and now it works. So it gives it that really cool charm of something that is truly put together by Star-Lord through a whole bunch of adventures as he has gone on through. He has slowly but surely put this baby of his, the Milano, together. So, other than the sticker work around here, these wings do have some movement to them. This wing right here specifically moves up and down, so you can kind of maneuver those in different shapes for different looks and such. The wings right here, they kind of move a little bit, but they're really meant to be stuck in the place that they are. They are actually on a ball joint, so if you want, you can, in fact, like rotate them around like this and then try to get maneuverability out of them, but I'm not really sure what that gets you. Like, maybe if you'd like to recreate some sort of a more dynamic pose or a pose where he's flying at hyperspeed or something like that, you could definitely try to recreate that, but they are pretty much supposed to be static and they're supposed to look and give you the look that they are currently at. We have these other ginormous panel lines that are also there for detail work, of course, to cover up the inside of the ship so that it stays closed, but you can elevate those if you'd like, which is really cool as well. Speaking of things elevating, the little solar panel right here does elevate, so you could totally imagine that, let's say they approach a solar system and they would need to charge up the Milano. They could totally flip this little thing up and then it draws power into there, and then it comes down and they're ready for travel. So that could totally work. Finally, right here, towards the undercarriage, we have a whole bunch of artillery. So first and foremost, right here at the very bottom of the ship, right underneath the wings, we have flick fire missiles, which are cool. So of course you just flick those and they fly away. We have stud missiles right here, which do unfold and come down and have a little bit of maneuverability, so you could actually target a specific Sakaran ship or other enemy and then fire off by pressing, of course, the little tab, and that will set the stud free, and hopefully you will be able to hit your target. You have a whole bunch of spares of these, so that's very nice that you actually get some spares if you lose one or if you need to fire off a few, so that's great play value for kids and such. And then of course right at the very bottom we have an additional blaster system. This one is just there for show. It doesn't actually have any action features to it, except for, of course, if you want, you could kind of rotate this little peg, but that doesn't really buy you anything. One thing that I actually don't like is these little things. For some reason they have a tendency to fall out a little bit, like on mine they're loose, so sometimes when I set the ship down they will fall off, and that's just a little bit cumbersome because if you lose a tiny little piece like that, it's a giant pain to go ahead and try to find it again. So that's a bit of a downer, but I think that's just on my specific set. One other thing that I wanted to point out is that I really love the look of the undercarriage of this design, because honestly a lot of times that's kind of a part that is neglected on Lego sets and on building sets in general. And honestly on toys in general, not even building sets and such. But right down here we actually have a very cool look. Like we have all these boosters working together, which is really sweet. We have this really ginormous almost hover-like features as well, so those look absolutely terrific. I really love the way that those two come together, and we have additional little blasters underneath the wings as well. So tons and tons of artillery for the Milano. Last but certainly not least, the final part that we have not looked at is the back, which I think may just be my favorite perspective of the ship. I just think I really like the dynamic look that it has back here. It just looks very cool, very powerful, and these wings just look absolutely awesome. They really kind of give the silhouette of a very menacing spaceship. Now, additionally to that, of course, the back little rotators here actually do come around, so these little engines do rotate and allow you for some maneuverability, so you could go ahead and pose those however you see fit, which is very nice as well. And then of course there is an opening engine that raises, because the idea is that this is the entrance point to the ship, because the Milano is not entered, they don't enter it from the side or anything. From what I recall, even in the film, they enter it from the back of the ship. So that's a nice little attention to detail there. In fact, when we try to pop the ship open, typically when you have a Lego set, this little cockpit would raise, and that's how you would input your pilot. This is not the case here, because in this scenario we have to raise the entire piece. It connects onto here via 3 studs, so it goes here, here, and back here, so it actually does stay quite snug. But as you can see, then we expose the inside of the Milano, which is actually quite nice as well. So back here we have one storage, one sitting space, and then I use it as a storage capacity for some of the accessories and such right now, because I just think it's quite convenient in that regard. We also see a nice little cassette player there, so of course that's to play all the fantastic music that was in the film, and obviously that's the tape player that Star-Lord uses. So that's absolutely awesome. And then on the front here, we can see that there are 2 additional spots. There's room right here for, of course, our fire extinguisher, as well as a nice little additional clip where I could actually clip in one of those katana swords that belong to Gamora. We'll take a look at that in more detail. On the sides here, we have 2 additional little clip-on points, which I use for placing Star-Lord's blasters, but once again, it's completely up to you what you choose to put there. We have the command chair where you can see Star-Lord proudly piloting his baby, the Milano. We have a nice little control panel along with that, which is quite cool. I actually really love the way that the control chair comes together. It has a nice little headboard, a back piece as well, which is absolutely fantastic. One final thing I have to note for the Milano before we take a look at the minifigures, the only final thing that is a little bit of a downer is the fact that having bought this ship, I thought that I'd be able to take my entire Guardians of the Galaxy and put them in there. And obviously, as you can see, we have 4 spots available here, so you could sit obviously Star-Lord, Drax, Gamora, and your Rocket Raccoon from the other set there. However, this fella unfortunately doesn't get much love, because as you can see, he is quite ginormous, so there is no way that he's going to be fitting inside the Milano. Alrighty guys, so here are the 5 minifigures for this set, and I think that they are all awesome. Like, every single one of them is absolutely awesome, and I know that Chris Pratt's Emmett wants to hop in here and go, everything is awesome! Well, everything is awesome about these minifigures. I absolutely think that they just knocked them out of the park. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Of course, the Sakaran is a little bit of an overlap, so that's a figure that we have gotten before. But the lovely thing about the Sakaran is that, of course, they have 2 different faces, so you can kind of still distinguish your Sakaran soldiers from one another, which is really cool, especially if you're army building with these little minifigures. Ronan is an absolutely force to be reckoned with. I think they did a great job with his headpiece. The one thing is, I wish that we would have gotten the soft cloth cape at this point. Of course, this is some of the sets that prior to the change to the soft goods materials, or the softer goods materials. I really wish we would have gotten the better cape there. Drax has an incredible amount of printing, quite possibly the most print work I've ever seen on a minifigure. It looks quite complex. You can see all that detail on all those different tattoos that he sports. Just a ton of detail work. Even on his little arms right there, you can see lots and lots of detail work as well. And then, of course, Star-Lord and Gamora are both sporting their awesome Ravager outfits. When we flip the figures on over, you can go ahead and take a look at the additional faces right here. So we have, of course, an additional face for Star-Lord, a more angered look. Same goes for Gamora. And then last but certainly not least, of course, Ronan. And I previously mentioned that the Sakaran, of course, has the one eyeball look as well. Once again, look at the amazing amount of print work for the one and only Drax. But really, where these figures shine is their additional accessories. And now the squad is fully armed and ready for a battle. So, of course, as you can see, obviously Star-Lord being the main kind of character of the ensemble, so to speak, he definitely gets the most accessories. By far, he definitely gets the nicest of treatments, let's put it that way, out of the bunch of course, the characters that we do receive. Not only does he have what I currently have equipped to him, of course, he gets the additional hairpiece that we saw on him before. He gets his helmeted look. He gets the little blaster that they utilize that Rocket assembles to take down Ronan, or at least for the first try, at least when they attempt to take him down, let's put it that way. He also gets 2 of his dual-wielding blasters. I didn't want him holding them because I didn't feel like you could actually tell them in detail, but he gets 2 of these, which are actually quite nice. I do like the way that these look. Once again, whenever we get new LEGO weapons, that's a good thing because most of the time there is a lot of overlap. But speaking of overlap, we do get the traditional kind of katana swords for Gamora. I wish that they would have tried to do something a bit different because she doesn't really have a traditional sword. She has a sword that is split down the middle, so that would have been really cool if we maybe got like a dual-wielded sword or double-sided sword. I think that would have been really sweet, and just, again, something different and something new. Drax gets a pair of knives, of course, just like he utilizes in the film. Ronan, of course, sports his absolutely awesome hammer, which I really love the way that this thing comes together. It is a 3-piece build with a nice little stick. Then you have the 1x1, I guess, block with the protruding little hole into which you shove the stick. And then a little black cheese wedge piece that slides onto that to really complete the entire look. And it turns out quite well. Like, it actually looks quite cool, and it's pretty in scale, so that's really nice too. And last but certainly not least, of course, the Sakaran soldier receives a blaster that we have seen before. I kind of wish that these studs were instead red. I feel like that would have worked a little bit better and would have just come together a little bit nicer. So all in all, of course, those are our minifigures for the set. So there you guys have it. That was, of course, the set review for the Milano Spaceship set from the LEGO Marvel superhero lineup, specifically with a tie-in to the Guardians of the Galaxy. I am super duper happy with this set. Now, of course, as I said before, I may be biased because I'm such a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and since then the comics, and I'm probably biased as a result of that as to how good this set really is, but I think it is very well done. Don't get me wrong, it has its flaws. It definitely doesn't allow you to really have all of the Guardians inside of it, which is a bit of a downer, but I think it really makes up for that with a pretty awesome little vehicle that really surprised me. I thought it was going to be just a throwaway vehicle, but it actually turned out quite nice and quite cool indeed. And then an absolutely stellar lineup of course, characters in minifigure form, including Ronan, the repeat Sakaran soldier, Drax, Star-Lord, and Gamora. And more specifically, if you want to have a complete LEGO minifigure lineup of the Guardians, obviously this is a worthwhile pickup because this will allow you to complete your team, because this is the only way that you can get Drax and Gamora. I don't believe, actually is Gamora? No, it's only Star-Lord and Sakaran Soldier in that other set. So yeah, and then of course you need to buy the little digging set to get Groot and Rocket. So that's how you complete the entire lineup of characters. That being said, there you guys have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, please don't forget to hit that like button. Hope you guys will tune in for the next one. As always, if you want to see more LEGO reviews, check out also Blitz Toys right here on YouTube. And of course, I will indeed catch you guys next time. Peace out. See you later, alligators.